Time did not begin, it was made. In the stillness before the ticking began, the universe knew only a single momentum moment without end, without boundary, a moment without a before or an after. Imagine a place without sunrise, without sunset. Imagine an expanse without seasons, without the gentle decay of leaves in autumn, without the rebirth of blossoms in spring. Imagine consciousness suspended not in sleep, not in death, but in a quiet eternity, a perpetual now. In such a place, there was no haste, no hurry. There was nothing to anticipate, nothing to regret. Moments did not pass. They simply were. Existence was unfragmented, unbroken by the relentless drumbeat of seconds, minutes, and hours. But something changed. Somewhere deep in the fabric of existence, a vibration began, subtle at first, like the whispering of leaves, like the faint trembling of the air before a storm. It was not sound, it was rhythm. It was repetition. It was the first hint of structure within the seamless chaos of eternity. Who set this pulse into motion? Who was the first to dream of order amidst infinite stillness? Perhaps it was consciousness itself, seeking form, seeking meaning. Perhaps it was a primordial intelligence, something older and deeper than humanity, something that desired to shape the boundless void into coherence. Or perhaps it was something else entirely. The ancients spoke of entities who breathed structure into the void, who carved boundaries into infinity. In the oldest stories passed down from lips to ears, from stone tablets to crumbling scrolls, there were beings who brought the knowledge of cycles, who taught mankind to count, to measure, to anticipate. They were called many things: watchers, gods, architects of reality. But whatever name was given to these beings, one truth remained constant. They introduced the concept of beginnings and endings. They divided the eternal present into manageable portions, segments of experience bound by markers. Thus, time was born not as a natural consequence of existence, but as a deliberate act of creation. It was conjured into being like a spell, like an incantation whispered in the dark. With time came sequence. With sequence came causality. With causality came stories, narratives of rise and fall, birth and death, past and future. With time, consciousness found itself no longer adrift in endless presence, but anchored to a framework. Yet there was a price. To create time meant to impose limitation. Eternity fractured, splintered into endless smaller eternities, moments strung together like beads on a thread. Reality became a tapestry woven of beginnings and endings, each thread measured, each pattern deliberate. And humanity, standing on the threshold between eternity and temporality, learned to see existence not as a boundless unity, but as fragments. Life became not an infinite now, but a race against the ticking clock, an endless pursuit marked by milestones. This shift was profound. The introduction of time altered not only perception, but reality itself. It gave birth to civilization, to history, to memory. But it also gave rise to anxiety, to fear of the future, regret of the past. Yet, hidden within this alteration was another, deeper secret. If time was created, it could also be manipulated. Those who understood this, who held the knowledge of the original pulse could influence the flow, could accelerate or decelerate experience itself. Throughout history, whispers spoke of those who guarded the secrets of time, those who held power over its pace. Priests, shamans, mystics, rulers, they knew that to control time was to control perception, consciousness, destiny. Their rituals were performed in accordance with celestial movements, aligning human consciousness with cosmic rhythms, reinforcing the original spell. So the world moved forward, governed not by natural law alone, but by design. Civilizations rose and fell according to cycles laid down long before their first stones were placed. Humanity danced to rhythms older than memory, moving in patterns so subtle they seemed natural. But always, beneath the surface, there lingered the memory of timelessness, a quiet yearning to return to the eternal now, to escape the confines of measurement, to break free from the clock's relentless grasp. This yearning was the first hint that something had been lost, something essential. And so, the invention of time became both humanity's greatest achievement and its deepest wound, a paradox etched into the very fabric of existence. But who, or what, truly set the first tick into motion? Who imposed this rhythm upon the infinite? That question remains, echoing softly in the background of consciousness, unanswered and perhaps unanswerable. Yet it persists, reminding us that time, in all its measured elegance, is a construct. Not reality, not truth, but creation. Before time was born, before the universe learned the delicate rhythm of seconds and minutes, there existed something else, something deeper, something pure and untouched by the delicate hands of measurement. There was the eternal now. Imagine standing on a shore of infinite silence, where every moment collapses gently into itself, never escaping, never fleeing. Here, the waves do not break, the stars do not flicker, and the heart does not beat, because motion itself has yet to exist. You do not wait. You do not anticipate. You simply are, suspended in this endless expanse of immediate presence. This was existence before time, before anyone felt the need to measure moments as if they were grains of sand slipping through their fingers. This was a state of being undivided, where consciousness felt no need for boundaries or divisions. Here, everything was experienced simultaneously, every thought, every sensation, every awareness of existence was immediate. Imagine perceiving every possible outcome, every potential decision, every path that ever was or ever could be simultaneously. In this place without boundaries, consciousness floated freely in an ocean of infinite possibility. What might that feel like, to exist without the constant ache of past and future? To be free of nostalgia, free of regret, free from the insatiable yearning for tomorrow. Without the chains of measurement, the world knew no endings, only endless beginnings wrapped seamlessly within one another. This was the original condition of existence, complete, whole, and utterly unfractured. Yet even within this purity, the seeds of longing existed. Consciousness, by its very nature, seeks distinction, contrast. Perhaps even eternity can grow restless with its own boundlessness. Perhaps, in an infinite present, consciousness began to dream of the exquisite tension of becoming, of motion, of something emerging from nothingness. This subtle desire, the wish to differentiate, to feel the texture of change, began to whisper through the eternal now. And so, very slowly, imperceptibly, this desire wove itself through the fabric of existence. It became the faintest ripple, an almost imperceptible breath of movement. And from that whisper, something remarkable emerged: a thought, a vibration, a silent question posed by existence itself. What if there were more than this? With that first silent question, existence shifted. Stillness gave birth to subtle motion. Unity fragmented into the first soft delineations between this and that, here and there. Within the seamless eternity of the eternal now, consciousness reached for something new: distinction, difference, duality. As consciousness moved, it inevitably sought to track its movement, To know that it had changed, consciousness needed something against which to measure itself. And thus, the very first measurement was born, not yet time, but the foundation of measurement itself. Distance emerged, a gentle gap between experience and observation, between potential and actuality. This first gap, a mere breath of separation, opened the way for all future measurements. Space became the first framework, and within this framework, the concept of sequence began to take form. Events ceased to be experienced simultaneously. Instead, they unfolded one after another. The gentle rhythm of before and after became discernible. With sequence, consciousness found a new richness. Now it could anticipate, remember, and reflect. It discovered the beauty of waiting, the sweetness of remembrance, the ache of nostalgia. But with these gifts came the price of loss, the loss of immediate wholeness, the loss of perfect completeness. This initial subtle fracture of eternity, this first tentative step out of the infinite present, created the conditions necessary for the birth of time. Before the clock, there was the eternal now. After the first measure, the path to time was inevitable. Yet, even after the introduction of sequence, consciousness carried within it the memory of that boundless, timeless ocean. It remained hidden deep within, a longing embedded in the Sula, yearning for the unity that had been lost. This yearning shaped religions, philosophies, mystic traditions, each of them attempting in their own way to return to that original eternal moment. In meditation, in prayer, in the contemplation of beauty, humans sought to recapture the eternal now, even if only for a fleeting instant. Poets spoke of it, musicians echoed it, artists attempted to paint it onto canvas, but it always remained elusive, slipping through fingers like water, vanishing just as it seemed within reach. The eternal now was forever lost as soon as consciousness discovered sequence and measure. But the memory of it lingered, embedded deep in the psyche, whispering softly, calling humanity back to its forgotten origins. They did not simply watch the stars, they counted them. They gave them names, boundaries, patterns. They carved meaning out of chaos. But why? To measure is to control. To nam is to possess. To count us, to dominate. Once, long ago, before numbers or scales or clocks, humanity's relationship with the world was fluid. The moon did not rise at measured intervals. It rose when it felt right, guided by instinct, watched with reverence. Seasons flowed like rivers, mingling gently into one another, without firm beginnings or endings. Life existed as a stream, never pausing to mark the passage of one wave from the next. But then, something changed. Somewhere in the fertile crescent of the human mind, a new idea took root. It sprouted quietly, subtly, almost invisibly. It was the idea that the world could be understood, not felt, not merely experienced, but comprehended. It whispered the seductive possibility of knowing, not just believing, measuring, not merely sensing. And so began the era of measurement. First, shadows cast upon the ground became instruments, simple, silent tools indicating the passage of moments. The sundial emerged, a humble circle etched upon stone or sand. A line moved across its surface, dividing one instant from the next, bringing order where once had been only light and shadow. This was more than a clock, it was a promise that the world could be understood, dissected, and controlled. With measurement came precision. Days became divided into hours, hours into minutes, minutes into seconds, each increment, a tighter grip upon the fluidity of existence. Yet even as humanity marveled at its newfound power, something was slipping away. The silent dance of time, once graceful and mysterious, grew rigid and mechanical, the natural rhythm replaced by the ticking of an invisible pendulum. The stars were next, no longer mysterious lights, drifting gently across a velvet sky. They became points upon a celestial grid. Humans mapped their journeys meticulously, turning the heavens into a clock, the universe into a mechanism. Orion, Sirius, the Pleiades, no longer deities or spirits, but instruments of measure, pieces of a grand machine whose purpose was becoming increasingly clear. They built stone circles, standing silently beneath endless skies. Stonehenge, Avebury, Karnak, each alignment a measurement, each shadow a notation. But what were these ancients measuring? Seasons, certainly. Days, undoubtedly. Yet beneath the surface, perhaps, something more profound was being marked. Perhaps they measured not merely the movement of celestial bodies, but the alignment of something deeper, something unseen, something internal. For measurement, once begun, became an obsession. Calendars arose structured, orderly, symmetrical. Weeks emerged, each day named and numbered, each hour given purpose. Sumerians crafted clay tablets, inscribing with stylus and wedged the careful tracking of the moon's journey. Egyptians observed the Nile, watching the floodwaters rise and fall in perfect rhythm with the stars, each event marked, anticipated, and harnessed. Yet why did humanity surrender to this precise tyranny? Because measurement gave the illusion of mastery. To measure meant to understand meant to control. The chaotic beauty of existence was terrifying precisely because it was unpredictable. Measurement calmed that terror. It tamed the uncertainty of existence, allowing humanity to build empires on the predictable rhythms of seasons, tides, and celestial cycles. But the more humanity measured, the further it drifted from the living truth of existence. When days were numbered, when hours were counted, something essential was lost. Life ceased to flow organically. Instead, existence fractured into discrete pieces, fragments, intervals, increments. Humanity stopped living moment to moment and began existing from deadline to deadline, sunrise to sunset, harvest to harvest. Yet in this newfound control lay a hidden peril. The deeper humanity sank into measurement, the more imprisoned it became by the tools it created. Time became not merely a convenience, it became a tyrant. Clocks began to tick louder, deadlines multiplied, and calendars transformed from gentle guides into ruthless masters. And still, the impulse to measure grew stronger. Measurement became not only practical but sacred. Temples arose aligned precisely with celestial bodies. Pyramids reflected cosmic ratios, embedding numerical harmony in stone. Priests became keepers of time, counting the passage of days and years, their rituals marking cosmic alignments that shaped destiny itself. The birth of measurement was thus not merely scientific, it was profoundly spiritual. Numbers became symbols, each digit imbued with hidden meaning, each ratio revealing divine order. Measurement was not simply about control, it was about communion, about aligning human affairs with cosmic forces, bridging earth and heaven through mathematical precision. Time was never meant simply to measure the world. It was designed to bind it. Every ticking clock is a quiet lock clicking shut. Every calendar is a series of invisible bars forged from seconds, minutes, and hours. Time became not a gentle observer of reality, but its keeper, a guardian whose vigilance ensures that nothing escapes its unrelenting grasp. But who holds the keys to this cage? Who built it and why? From the first shadow cast by a standing stone, humanity began constructing this prison, unaware of the nature of its confinement. Day by day, hour by hour, people willingly encased themselves in the invisible chains of temporal order, craving the certainty offered by measurement, blind to the deeper consequence that freedom itself was slipping away. Consider the rhythm imposed upon existence by the invention of weeks, months, and years. Days no longer flowed gently into nights. Instead, they became commodities numbered, labeled, allocated. Hours transformed from natural phenomena into possessions bought, sold, traded, and lost. Humanity learned to see life not as an experience, but as currency, spent carefully, fearfully, in increments. And so humanity traded eternity for measured certainty, freedom for structure, fluidity for rigid predictability. Yet, to speak of time as a cage is to admit something deeper still, that time does not merely restrain its shapes. In this shaping, it imposed rhythms upon humanity itself. The body, once guided only by hunger, sleep, and instinct, began to obey external demands. People arose not with the sun, but with the tolling of bells, the shrill ringing of alarms. They worked not until completion, but until a predetermined hour. They ate, rested, and even loved according to prescribed intervals. Life itself became regimented, ordered, disciplined. Why did humanity accept this? Why did people yield their natural rhythm to a mechanical master? Because to measure time is to give the illusion of purpose. Time promises that life has meaning, that each passing moment brings progress, purpose, significance. But beneath this comforting illusion lurks a profound manipulation. If life is measured in time, then it can also be controlled by it. Kings, priests, and rulers knew this truth. They grasped that controlling time meant controlling consciousness itself. Calendars became instruments of power, structuring not just the year but society itself, planting, harvesting, feasting, fasting, all governed by time's relentless decree. Humanity's cycles were no longer organic but engineered. Their societies, their celebrations, even their prayers became entrained, synchronizing minds and bodies to a single rhythm dictated from above. Yet humanity was unaware. People believed themselves free even as their lives became meticulously regulated. Festivals appeared natural, work weeks unquestioned, the ticking of clocks unnoticed in their steady encroachment upon autonomy. But the cage was not merely external, it also settled within the mind. Humanity internalized time's rhythm, feeling unease when their natural flow contradicted the clock. The anxiety of lateness, the dread of wasted hours, the ceaseless fear of deadlines became universal. The freedom of the present moment faded, replaced by a constant fixation on the future, a persistent regret of the past. This mental confinement was subtle yet powerful. People ceased to experience life fully, always half living in memories or future possibilities, rarely inhabiting the only true reality, the present moment. Thus, time became humanity's most invisible prison cell, without walls, without bars, yet impossible to escape. Its chains were not steel but perception. Its locks were not mechanical but psychological. The cage was constructed not just around humanity, but within it. And still, humanity clung to time's illusion. People continued to measure life by increments, marking birthdays, anniversaries, decades. The linear narrative of progress became ingrained, unquestionable. Societies grew, civilizations expanded, all structured upon this relentless forward march. But what if the forward march was a deception? What if history itself was less a progression than a repetition? an endless loop disguised as forward movement. What if time had not freed humanity, but trapped it, endlessly repeating patterns of rise and fall, hope and despair, birth and destruction? Ancient civilizations glimpsed this truth. Mayans saw time as cyclical, eternal patterns endlessly repeating. Egyptians mapped cosmic cycles precisely, recognizing that existence followed paths laid down long before humanity ever awoke. Greeks spoke of eternal returns, endless repetitions of existence, as if history itself were trapped within time's hidden cycles. What if the story we know as history isn't a story at all but a script, a carefully authored text, crafted not by the slow hand of events, but by unseen hands, rewriting the past, editing reality itself? Consider the possibility. Consider the implications. Time, as humanity has come to know it, is linear, a comforting, forward-moving river, flowing predictably from past to future. We build our lives around this certainty, never questioning the gentle current that carries us along. Yet beneath the comforting flow of this narrative lies a disturbing question. Has history always moved forward, or was it reset, restarted, rearranged? Ancient texts whisper subtle truths, hints hidden between their lines, suggesting not one beginning, but many. Mythologies speak of worlds destroyed and reborn, civilizations swallowed and recreated, of great floods, fires, and cataclysms, wiping clean humanity's slate, allowing time itself to be rewritten. Perhaps these were not merely myths. Perhaps they were memories, fragmented echoes from a past deliberately forgotten, moments when humanity's collective history was erased and started anew. Who would wield such power to reset time itself? Those who control history control consciousness. By redefining the past, reality itself is reshaped. Empires understand this. Victors rewrite history to serve their narrative, erasing inconvenient truths, rebranding heroes and villains to fit neatly within their constructed timelines. But what if this manipulation went deeper, not merely changing perception of events, but altering time itself? Imagine a world centuries ago humming with life and complexity. Imagine cultures thriving, technologies evolving, knowledge advancing. Then, in an instant, something intervenes, an event so profound, so catastrophic, that it shatters the collective memory. Humanity emerges from the rubble, dazed and confused, with history now a blank page, open to be filled by those who survived. Calendars are reset, years numbered anew, stories retold to fit a convenient narrative. Humanity begins again, oblivious to the reset, convinced their history is authentic, their past uninterrupted. But who could orchestrate such a reset? What force is capable of rearranging time itself? Ancient scribes spoke cryptically of celestial cycles, cosmic alignments capable of altering human consciousness. The Mayans tracked cycles meticulously, suggesting that time itself was not linear, but cyclical, marked by grand resets every few millennia. Egyptian priests encoded warnings in stone, speaking of epochs erased and remade, hinting that history was not singular but recurring. These civilizations understood something crucial. Time is not absolute, it is malleable. Reality itself can be reshaped by those who possess the keys to perception. They understood that humanity's consciousness is vulnerable, easily influenced by the manipulation of memory, by controlling the narrative of the past. And perhaps that control persists. Look at anomalies scattered throughout history, ancient maps, depicting lands that should have been unknown, technological artifacts inexplicably advanced for their supposed time, stories from cultures separated by oceans yet startlingly similar. These are echoes of the reset, fragments that survived the rewriting, clues pointing toward a hidden truth. Our history has been restarted, repeatedly, and we remain unaware. Consider the so-called Dark Ages, centuries mysteriously devoid of knowledge, progress seemingly paused or erased. What if this was a deliberate Rosetta-conscious effort to obscure an inconvenient past, burying truths beneath a fabricated darkness? The clock we trust implicitly may be unreliable, not just measuring time, but manufacturing it. Each tick, each second, reinforces an imposed linear narrative, a controlled progression. Humanity moves forward, believing it is progressing, never suspecting it walks in circles, repeating patterns dictated by unseen forces. The Great Time Reset is not an isolated event. It is ongoing, subtle yet profound, a quiet rewriting of memory and history. Every generation accepts its timeline as authentic, unaware it exists within a carefully managed construct. Yet beneath this narrative control lies an unsettling reality. Truth cannot remain buried forever. Fragments surface, ancient manuscripts rediscovered, anomalies uncovered, memories stirring beneath layers of imposed forgetfulness. Consciousness seeks truth naturally. Humanity instinctively questions, sensing inconsistencies, feeling intuitively that history as presented feels incomplete, edited, altered. Time is not merely a measurement, it is an incantation. Consider this carefully. Words hold power spoken into existence, they shape reality. Similarly, numbers whispered through clocks and calendars bind the consciousness of humanity. Each tick of the clock, each date circled on the calendar, is not simply a notation, it is a spell cast subtly, invisibly, continuously. To truly understand time, we must see it not as mechanical or even mathematical, but as linguistic. It is a language excellent, yet deafening, spoken by unseen tongues, woven into the fabric of perception itself. Humanity repeats this language unconsciously, chanting endlessly, reinforcing its own imprisonment with every passing second. How did this happen? In the oldest traditions, language itself was divine. Words held creation within them, their vibrations capable of manifesting entire worlds. When ancient beings first uttered sounds, reality responded, reshaping itself to match those primal frequencies. In this sacred understanding, words were not simply tools of communication, they were instruments of creation. And if language could shape worlds, then Timaeus language of numbers and sequences could certainly shape consciousness itself. Consider the calendar. Each day named, numbered, assigned significance. Humanity's collective energy synchronized, emotions rising and falling in alignment with specific dates. Holidays, festivals, anniversaries saw carefully measured intervals directing collective focus. Every new year, humanity believes it enters a new cycle, unknowingly reaffirming the spell that binds it. Yet why do calendars feel so powerful? Because they synchronize consciousness. Millions of minds focused simultaneously, resonating together, create waves of collective energy, emotional, spiritual, psychic. This resonance reinforces the original spell. Humanity collectively believes in the reality of time, thus strengthening its grip with each passing year. The ancients understood this intimately. Priests and shamans conducted rituals precisely timed to celestial movements, aligning human consciousness with cosmic cycles. Their chants, prayers, and dances were carefully measured, each action a word in a larger incantation, aligning humanity with divine rhythms. These rituals weren't merely symbolic, they reinforced the structure of reality itself. Yet over time, humanity lost awareness of this truth. Ritual became habit, habit became unconscious routine. The sacred power of the original incantations faded from memory, leaving behind only mechanical echo clocks ticking, alarms ringing, schedules enforced. People forgot that each measured interval was originally a spell designed to hold consciousness in place. Now, trapped within this linguistic spell, humanity rarely questions why life feels restrictive, confined, repetitive. People sense vaguely the artificial nature of their routines, the constrictive grip of schedules, yet few understand the true source of this limitation. It is not simply society or culture, it is the spell of time itself. Even the language used to describe time reveals its hidden nature. Spending time, saving time, wasting time. Each phrase subtly reinforces the idea that time is a commodity, something finite and valuable, something to be feared and respected. Humanity repeats these words unconsciously, chanting endlessly, reinforcing their own imprisonment. But if time is indeed a spell, can it be broken? Spells rely on belief, on the collective acceptance of their reality. If enough minds awaken to the illusion, the spell weakens. Awareness becomes the key. Consciousness itself can reclaim freedom by rejecting the imposed language of time, returning instead to the primal rhythms that existed long before clocks were invented. Yet breaking the spell requires more than simple disbelief. It requires a return to conscious ritual, to the intentional use of words and numbers. Ancient cultures practiced this consciously, measuring time not to imprison, but to harmonize. They aligned their lives not to mechanical clocks, but to natural rhythms, the phases of the moon, cycles of the stars, rhythms of the seasons. In reconnecting with these organic rhythms, humanity can rediscover the sacredness hidden within measurement itself. Each moment becomes significant not because it is measured mechanically, but because it resonates naturally, intuitively, with cosmic forces. Time ceases to be an imposed external spell. Instead, it becomes an internal rhythm, a sacred dance. Yet modern civilization has drifted far from this intuitive connection. Mechanical time dominates everything: work, rest, relationships. Humanity lives increasingly disconnected from nature's subtle cycles, imprisoned within the artificial structure of hours and days. Yet still, deep within the psyche, a memory lingers, a quiet intuition that life should not be this mechanical, this constrained. Once, time was a rhythm. Now it is a system, rigid, cold, absolute. There was a moment, almost imperceptible, when the heart of the world changed. Not with a bang, not with fire or flood, but with a hum, a pulse, a mechanism. The machine did not invent time. It inherited it, then refined it, then enforced it. Before machines, time was sacred, organic. It followed the breath of the earth, the turning of the stars, the slow dance of light and shadow. A child did not wake at a precise hour. They woke when the birds began to sing. A farmer did not measure the day in hours. They moved with the sun, ate when hungry, rested when the body called for stillness. Then came industry, smoke, steam, precision, and with it, the machine. The machine could not work without time. It needed it, demanded it, and so humanity recalibrated. People began to wake not with the light, but with the bell. They no longer worked with the rhythm of life, but to the rhythm of the clock. Minutes became units, hours became containers, schedules became law. Timionsay, an unseen river, was sliced, labeled, and placed on walls, wrists, and screens. And the machine did more than enforce time, it mechanized it. It made it inescapable. Where once the body dictated movement, now time dictated the body. It rang the bell. It told you when to rise, when to eat, when to stop. It reduced life to a series of tasks, each framed within brackets of controlled time. Moments were no longer lived, they were allocated, divided, consumed. But more than that, the machine made time real. It materialized the illusion. Where time had once been a perception's oft malleable spiritual, it became physical. You could hear it, feel it, wear it. Clocks ticked, gears turned, engines roared. And within that roar, humanity forgot the gentle silence of timelessness. Even architecture changed. The sacred spirals of old temples gave way to square blocks, straight lines, rigid geometry, all built in service of uniformity, predictability, and efficiency. Even space was redesigned to worship time. Train schedules, factory shifts, bell towers, office hours. The machine became priest, the clock became God, and slowly, something began to erode, not immediately, not obviously, but deeply. Humanity's intuitive sense of rhythm, of presence, of being began to fade. We stopped listening to the body. We ignored the sun, the moon, the wind. We listened instead to machines. We synchronized with artificial time, believing it to be reality. We forgot how to drift, how to pause, how to exist in silence. Even dreams were scheduled. Even grief was timed. And the most dangerous illusion of all emerged: productivity. Productivity told us that time is not just structured, it is valuable. And if something is valuable, it can be bought, sold, wasted. So we began to sell our time, our hours, our days, our lives. We began to speak of time as money. We called it investment. We called it work. We called it responsibility. But in truth, we were trading eternity for machinery, presence for performance, soul for schedule. The machine didn't steal time, it commodified it. And now, we run not toward meaning, but toward deadlines, not toward joy, but toward efficiency. We multitask, we calendar, we measure sleep, we quantify every breath. And in the process, we forget how it felt to live without the tick, without the hum, without the digital voice whispering, "You're late, you're behind, you don't have enough time." But here is the truth. The machine is not evil. It is not malicious. It is simply indifferent. It cares nothing for your being, only for your output. And still, deep within the noise, something remembers. Some quiet voice beneath the hum of screens and engines. A pulse older than the machine. A rhythm still aligned with the moon, the tides, the breath of the earth. It waits in your bones, in your dreams, in the moments between notifications, in the long silences you avoid. It whispers, "You were not born for the machine. You were born for the eternal, and the eternal does not tick. It breathes." The machine may measure time, but it cannot feel it. It cannot know it. It cannot escape it. But you can. Not everything that feels real is true. Not everything that moves is alive. And not every second that passes must be counted. Time surrounds you, yet it is not yours. You wear it like clothing, but it was tailored by others. You obey it like law, but it was written in a language you've forgotten how to speak. You were born into time, but you were not born of it. The clock began before you took your first breath. Its hands were already turning, its rhythm already in motion. And from the first cry, you were given a name, a number, a schedule. You were measured. You were placed. Here is the year of your birth, they said. Here is your first hour, your first deadline, your first expiration. You were taught to look ahead, to plan, to wait, to hurry. But rarely, so rarely were you taught to be. And now you live inside a structure you did not build. You wake when it tells you. You work when it commands. You sleep not when you are tired, but when the calendar allows. You are not broken, but the rhythm is. You are not lost, but the map is false. You do not need more time. You need less of its illusion. Because timeless, you know, it is not fixed. It bends. It shifts. It yields to presence. Think of the moments when it disappears. The way hours vanish in deep conversation. The way minutes stretch during grief. The way time dissolves in art, in music, in love. This is not imagination. This is truth revealing itself. In those moments, you are not escaping time. You are remembering what it felt like before it was imposed. You are touching the real. Because the real has no hour. It has no start. It has no end. It simply is. The now, not the second, not the minute, but the eternal now, is always here, always waiting. You have been trained to ignore it, to think only in terms of what comes next. But the present is not a hallway between past and future. It is the only room that exists. And it is quiet here. So quiet. You can feel your breath again. You can hear your heartbeat not measured, not managed, but alive. Here, you are not late. Here, there is no schedule, no deadline, no debt. Here, you are simply allowed. Allowed to see, allowed to rest, allowed to return. The illusion of time breaks, not with force, but with stillness. You don't escape time by racing ahead. You escape by stopping, by stepping sideways out of the line, out of the script, out of the ticking. You let it go. You let the clock continue turning without you. You let the emails wait. You let the hours pass like clouds. And you return to the center, the breath, the now, the place where nothing is measured because nothing needs to be. Here, you are not behind. You are not early. You are not even on time. You simply are. And in this being, you remember. You remember the space before clocks. You remember the silence beneath sound. You remember yourself as you truly are. Not a unit of productivity. Not a machine on a schedule. Not a story on a timeline. But a soul. Still. Open. Eternal. Time was created. But you were not. You are the pause between the seconds. You are the presence that time cannot measure. You are the breath that continues after the ticking stops.